Pause for one instant and listen closely. What I'm about to tell you might sound absurd, but it is the most powerful truth you will ever hear about success. Everything you have been taught about prospering is wrong. It is not the diploma. It is not talent. It is not effort. It is the way you think, and only 1% of people on this planet understand this. These people control nearly all the money in the world. Have you ever stopped to wonder why? Perhaps what holds you back is not a lack of opportunities, but the fact that you have not yet decided to act upon one powerful idea. And it is about this idea that I want to speak with you now. The idea that can change everything. Everything that exists in the world began with an idea. Every empire, every invention, every fortune, every change, all were born in the mind of someone who dared to believe it was possible. What most people do not understand is that the secret to success has never been in resources, opportunities, or luck. The secret has always been in one idea, and the courage to turn it into reality. I discovered this when there was nothing in my life that could be called promising. I had no education, no connections, no money. I worked simple jobs, the kind that barely paid the bills, until one day, someone handed me a book, Think and Grow Rich. I did not know it then, but that book would be the turning point, not because of the pages, but because of the idea it carried. An idea so powerful that, when it entered my mind, it destroyed everything I believed to be impossible. In that moment, something inside me awakened. For the first time, I understood that what separates people who live in scarcity from those who live in abundance is not intelligence nor effort. It is the way they think. It was as if I had spent my entire life trying to find the key to success, and it had always been in my pocket. I just had never looked at it. So I did something simple, but it would change everything. I took one piece of paper and wrote down one idea. Just one. It seemed foolish, but it was the beginning of everything. My idea was to start a small cleaning service. I knew nothing about the business, had no capital, no clients, but I had one thing that most people lose, the willingness to act. And that is exactly what pulled me out of stagnation. In less than 1 year, that idea, which seemed ridiculous, led me to earn more than $100,000. I did not become smarter. I did not inherit anything. I did not take any courses. I simply believed in the idea and acted. Most people do not fail for lack of opportunity. They fail because they kill their ideas before they are even born. How many times have you had an idea and thought, that will not work? How many times have you imagined something incredible but gave up because you did not know how? How many times have you believed you needed money to start, when in truth you only needed to start? The mind is fertile ground, but it does not discriminate what it plants. If you plant fear, it gives you more fear. If you plant an idea and nourish it with faith, it grows until it becomes reality. That is what I learned. Ideas are invisible seeds, and if you do not protect them, fear, doubt, and logic will pull them out before they germinate. I see people saying, when I have more time, I will start. When I have more money, I will invest. When everything is right, I will try. But the universe does not reward when, it rewards now. Action is the language it understands. I started by cleaning one floor for $30 per month. It seemed insignificant, but it was the first step on the ladder that would lead me to something much greater. Every door I opened with an office key seemed to also open a door inside my mind. I realized that there were no limits beyond the ones I created myself. And do you know what is most curious? The people around me started calling me lucky. But luck is the name that insecure people give to the courage of others. The truth is, all of us receive ideas all the time. They appear in moments of silence, during a walk, while listening to a conversation, or before sleeping. They are invitations from the universe, opportunities to create something new, to grow, to contribute, to prosper. But most of the time we reject them. We say, that is not for me, I do not have talent. Others have tried before and it did not work. And every time we do this, it is as if we are telling life, I do not want any more ideas. The problem is not the absence of opportunities, it is the absence of decision. Success is reserved for those who decide to act before understanding all the steps. It is faith in motion. Have you ever noticed how successful people seem to have a sparkle in their eyes? It is because they live driven by an idea. They do not need external motivation. They wake up every day with a purpose that pulls them forward, and you can have that too. Think about something you have always wanted to do, but put aside. Perhaps open a business, change careers, learn something new, write a book, teach something to someone. Now imagine that this idea was planted in you for a reason. What if the simple fact that you thought of it is a sign that it is possible? How many lives could you impact if you took one step today? How many doors would open if you believed enough to start? People ask me what I did differently, and I always reply, I gave one chance to the idea. I did not need to know all the details. I did not wait for confidence to appear. I acted and let confidence come afterwards. Most people do the opposite. They wait to feel ready to start. But the truth is, no one feels ready. You become ready when you start. And when you start, something magical happens. The world responds. The right people appear. Opportunities arise. Coincidences align. The universe is like a mirror. It reflects what you emit. If you emit doubt, it returns obstacles. If you emit faith, it returns pathways. Modern science confirms this in an impressive way. Research shows that creative brain activity increases drastically when we are emotionally connected to an idea. In other words, when you truly believe in something, your brain begins to work to prove that it is possible. It literally changes its internal connections, filtering information, creating new perceptions, and directing your attention to opportunities that were previously invisible. This is how the mind creates reality. It is not magic. It is focus. It is frequency. It is energy in motion. I do not want you to believe me. I want you to test it. Grab one piece of paper right now and write down one single idea, the one that has been pounding in your head for ages, the one you always postpone. Write it down, and then ask yourself, what can I do today to take the first step? Not tomorrow, not when everything is perfect, today, because perfection is the excuse of those who never start. And perhaps this simple action, writing an idea and taking one step, will be the beginning of a transformation that will lead you to a place you cannot even imagine exists. I started with an idea so small it seemed irrelevant, and this idea led me to build companies, speak around the world, and help millions of people. But it was not the size of the idea that made the difference. It was the size of the faith I placed in it. And perhaps that is exactly what is missing in you, enough faith to believe that your idea is worth living. Because the secret is not having brilliant ideas, it is having the courage to act on them. Success is not reserved for the smartest, but for those who believe enough to start. And when you start, you will realize what I realized. The right ideas do not appear by chance. They appear when you finally decide to listen to them. There was one instant, and I remember it with a clarity that still stings, when I realized that I myself was the biggest obstacle in my life. It was not the government. It was not the city. It was not a fleeting crisis. It was what I had carried in my head since childhood, ideas about money that I did not even choose to have. I grew up hearing phrases that settled as absolute truths. Money is hard. It is not for people like us. We have to suffer to deserve it. These phrases were as natural to me as breathing, until the one day I wrote them on one sheet of paper and saw in them the root of everything that held me back. When I read those words, I felt a mix of shame and relief. Shame for having lived under one lie that was not mine, and relief for finally being able to name the enemy. This is not just motivational poetry. There is science behind this mechanism. Behavioral psychologists show that living under scarcity consumes our mental bandwidth. When the mind is preoccupied with financial concerns, it loses its capacity for planning, decision-making, and creativity. In other words, the real lack of resources is not just economic, it is cognitive. It traps you in a short-term cycle and erases long-term vision. And there is more. What we call financial beliefs, these silent stories we tell ourselves about money, are not innocent. Research on financial self-efficacy shows that belief in one's own ability to manage money is strongly linked to real behaviors, such as saving and investing. It is not simply knowing what to do, it is believing that you can do it that changes behavior. When I changed my beliefs, I started acting differently, and that altered my results. Now, think about the excuses you repeat. I have no way, it is not for me, one day. These phrases are not neutral. They shape your attention, your focus, and even your emotional state. The American Psychological Association has consistently reported that money worries are among the main sources of stress for people, affecting sleep, health, and relationships. Financial fear isn't just a thought. It's a physiological burden that saps your energy to act. That's why I want to propose something practical and brutally honest. Take a sheet of paper and write, in large letters, the strongest belief you hold about money. Don't overthink it. Just write down what speaks to you in an automatic voice from within. Now ask yourself, is this absolutely true, or just something I've accepted without questioning? Financial psychologists have identified patterns called money scripts, unconscious narratives inherited in childhood that predict poor behaviors. Avoiding money, idolizing status tied to spending, or believing wealth is dirty. Identifying this script is the first step to breaking free from it. When I did this, I felt a mix of anger and liberation. Anger for having let my life be guided by borrowed ideas. Liberation because I could finally choose a new story. And you can do the same with concrete steps. Identify the belief, question its origin. Where did it come from? Seek out counter-evidence, create a substitute affirmation, and try it out. It's not magic, it's the science of behavioral change. The brain rewires connections when you practice new routines and repeat new messages, a process neuroscience confirms as activity-dependent plasticity. Changing beliefs requires repeated action until the new pattern becomes automatic. Now I want to challenge you with something specific and real-world applicable, something small enough to be done by anyone, but powerful enough to generate an effect. For 14 days, do 3 things every morning. First, read aloud the new belief you wish to cultivate. For example, I'm capable of managing and growing my prosperity. Second, write down a concrete 10-minute action that demonstrates this belief. Calling about an opportunity, researching prices, opening a simple spreadsheet. Third, record a small victory from the day, something you did that confirms the new belief, even if it seems insignificant. These repetitions create internal evidence. They realign what you think with what you do, and that's where real change begins. I know objections will arise, but what if I fail? Then I answer with the truth that lifted me up. Failure is information, not identity. What if I lose money? Then test on a small scale, learn quickly, and protect what's essential. What if it's too late? Too late is a concept of time, not a destination. Each of these fears has a practical solution when you turn the emotion into a small experiment and learn from the results. It's no exaggeration to say that this internal transformation can reshape your future. Studies show that individuals with greater financial self-efficacy are more likely to save, plan for retirement, and avoid revolving debt. Measurable results that connect belief to real benefit. This means that working on your mindset about money isn't empty self-help. It's an evidence-based strategy for survival and prosperity. Finally, allow me a question that might make you uncomfortable. Do you prefer to blame external factors for your situation, or do you want to take the honest risk of revising your thoughts and acting on them? The difference between these two choices is the core of what separates those who stay put and those who move forward. I chose to revise my beliefs. I lost sleep, made mistakes, paid the price of learning, and it was precisely this courage to confront my own ideas that gave me back control. If you are willing to do the mental work, the rest can be learned, negotiated, and built. If not, you will remain stuck in a script that isn't even yours. Start today. Write down your belief, question it, define a substitute phrase, and take 3 small actions that prove it. Repeat, observe the evidence, adjust. It's from this quiet daily work that great changes are born. For a long time, I lived trying to fit in. I believed that to be accepted, I needed to be what was expected of me, the exemplary employee, the polite man, the one who never spoke loudly, the one who followed the rules and bothered no one. But inside there was an emptiness. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw a stranger, a man who smiled for the world but had lost himself. The fear of rejection turned me into someone invisible. And the most dangerous thing is that when you spend too much time pretending, you start to believe in your own mask. You forget who you really are. I remember one specific day. I was sitting at the back of a huge auditorium, watching a man speak on stage. He wasn't the most handsome, nor the most intelligent, but there was something about him, a confidence that seemed magnetic. People listened to him, as if every word were a universal truth. And I thought, if I could speak like that, my life would change. But soon the voice of fear whispered, "You're not like that. You'll look ridiculous. They'll laugh at you." That voice was so convincing that for years it kept me silent. I was like a bird born to fly, but who believed its wings were a mistake. It was on that day that I heard something that cut through the auditorium air like a blade. If you want to be free, you need to be yourself. Those words weren't just heard. They echoed within me like a call. I realized I had never truly lived. I existed to meet expectations. I worked jobs that didn't make me happy, associated with people who didn't truly know me, and made choices that kept others comfortable but were slowly destroying me from within. Being accepted was my addiction, and the fear of judgment was the prison I built for myself. How many of you are in that same cell? How many times have you stopped trying something for fear of what others would think? How many times have you silenced a dream because someone called you crazy? It's easy to believe we're being prudent, when in reality, we're being prisoners. Society teaches from an early age that we should fit in, follow the standard, please others, belong. But the price for that is extremely high. You lose your authenticity, and along with it, your creative force. I learned that the fear of rejection is, in fact, the fear of seeing yourself exposed, without masks, without approval, without excuses. And it's at that point that true freedom begins. Because when you decide to be who you are, the right people stay, and the wrong ones simply walk away. And that's okay. I had to accept that being myself would mean disappointing some people. But I realized that the price of approval is always higher than the price of authenticity. I remember the first day I decided to speak in public. I was trembling. My hands were sweating, my voice was faltering, and everything in me screamed to give up. But something deeper screamed louder. Be you. Not what they expect, not what pleases you. And when the words started to come out, they weren't perfect, but they were real. And for the first time, I felt the power of being true. It no longer mattered if they would laugh, if they would like it. if they would understand. What mattered was that, in that moment, I was me, and that's how fear began to lose its grip. This is the point that transforms lives. When you stop molding yourself to fit into others' molds, the world starts to mold itself around who you are. It's as if the universe were waiting for you to remember your essence to align the rest. And there's something extraordinary in that. The more authentic you are, the more opportunities appear that match your energy. Because the frequency of authenticity is irresistible. People feel when you are being true, and it is that truth that attracts respect, love, prosperity. But being authentic requires courage. Courage to displease, to make mistakes, to be misunderstood. Courage to stand up even when criticism comes, and it will come. It always will. When I started teaching about prosperity and mindset, some called me a dreamer, a charlatan, naive. But I had already made peace with one truth. The judgment of others will never cost me more than my own self-denial. I would rather be criticized for who I am than applauded for who I am not. There's a price to living to please. It's a slow, silent death. You breathe, but you don't live. Smiling for everyone while suffocating inside isn't kindness, it's self-abandonment. And this self-abandonment creates resentment, sadness, and a constant feeling that something is missing. Because something truly is missing. You. The person you were created to be, with your quirks, your flaws, your light and your shadow. The world doesn't need edited versions. It needs real presence. I want you to think about the areas of your life where you've been hiding. At work, do you say what you believe, or just what's expected? In relationships, do you express your feelings, or swallow your words for fear of conflict? In your family, do you live by your values, or just repeat theirs? Because every time you choose to remain silent, a part of you dies a little. Liberation begins when you decide to reclaim those parts. Maybe you need to say no for the first time. Maybe you need to embrace a dream no one understands. Maybe you need to look at yourself in the mirror and admit, I am not this person I am pretending to be. This is the beginning, and don't expect it to be comfortable. Freedom never is. But it is real. I still remember the exact day I stopped asking permission to be myself. It was painful. I lost people, I lost opportunities, but I gained myself. And the curious thing is that when you find yourself, everything superficial fades away, and what is true remains. It's like cleaning a dirty window. The light was always there. It was just blocked. And you are that light. If I could look you in the eyes right now, I would say, stop hiding. The world doesn't need a well-behaved copy. It needs your authenticity. The courage to be who you are is worth more than any approval. And when you embrace this, something extraordinary happens. Fear remains, but it loses its grip. You act even while trembling. You speak even while stuttering. You live even without guarantees. And it's at that very moment when truth conquers fear that you begin to experience what it truly means to be free. Doubt is a silent thief. It doesn't shout, it whispers. It settles into the cracks of daily life, slowly eroding the bridges between who you are and who you could become. I vividly recall the period when it dominated my heart. I avoided questions, stayed quiet in meetings, let ideas die in silence. Not because I didn't want them, but because behind them there was a constant murmur. What if I fail? What if they laugh? What if I waste my time? This murmur transforms possibilities into excuses and causes talents to lie dormant. Doubt acts like a distorted lens. It magnifies risks and minimizes opportunities. When consumed by it, you tend to overestimate failure and underestimate your own capabilities. It's a human mechanism, a blend of fear, past experiences, and mental habits that creates a kind of emotional blockage. In my case, for years, I refrained from asking a simple question in public because I was embarrassed to seem foolish. Instead of learning, I hid. Each silence reinforced the belief that I should remain invisible, and the more I hid, the more my confidence waned. Doubt has practical and measurable effects. It diminishes the courage to act, reduces exposure to new experiences, and, over time, impoverishes your skill set. A small, unperformed action today becomes an excuse tomorrow. Several stacked excuses turn into a lifetime of regrets. That's why it's crucial to understand doubt not as something that appears suddenly, but as a pattern that can be dismantled. To begin defeating this thief, first, name it. When you catch yourself thinking, "What if I fail?" Stop and write down exactly what failure you imagine. View the thought as an impartial observer. Often, what you've written loses half its power when exposed to daylight. Doubt thrives on being internalized. It weakens when brought out and examined. Next, make a list of real evidence against this fear. Moments when you've already succeeded. Small victories that prove you know how to act. This rebalances the mental scales between risk and capability. I want to tell you something that happened to me, which changed my relationship with doubt. When I was young, after a series of dead-end jobs, I received an idea that would change everything. But at first, I hesitated. I was afraid to take risks. One day, upon seeing an advertisement that could be an opportunity, I almost let it pass. It was a simple chance to clean a single floor of offices for a modest sum of money. Doubt spoke loudly. "It'll be too much work, it's not worth it, what if you fail?" But something inside me just said to try it for 1 month. I accepted it as an experiment. Instead of analyzing it to exhaustion, I tested it. In the first month, I made mistakes, learned, adjusted, and continued. And it was this sequence of small actions, initiated despite the fear, that dissolved doubt and opened the door to results I had never imagined. The lesson was clear. Doubt loses its power in the face of repeated action and small tests. There are practical techniques to neutralize doubt that anyone can apply right now. One of them is the short-term test. Choose a minimal action, executable today, that directly addresses your biggest fear. If you're afraid to propose a project, propose only the first meeting. If you're afraid to publish something, publish 1 paragraph. The goal isn't to guarantee immediate success, it's to accumulate evidence that you can act. Another method is to transform doubt into curiosity. Instead of thinking, "What if I fail?" ask yourself, "What can I learn from this?" Curiosity shifts energy from judgment to investigation, and this reduces the emotional burden that paralyzes. It's also useful to understand the mental patterns that sustain doubt, the fear of social judgment, perfectionism, the aversion to loss. All of these have evolutionary and cultural roots, and acknowledging their existence helps reduce automatic reactions. Don't blame yourself for having doubts. Instead, treat them as indicators. Where there is fear, there is an opportunity for growth. Recognizing this pattern and acting deliberately is like building a muscle. At first, it's difficult, then it becomes automatic. I need to mention examples that illustrate how doubt can be overcome and how, when ignored, it consumes opportunities. Think of figures like J.K. Rowling, who faced rejections and often reined in her confidence, but persisted despite doubt. Today, her work has transformed lives and markets. On the other hand, hundreds of talents have disappeared because they allowed the fear of failure to blind them before they even tore out the first page of their book or opened the first door of their business. I won't list all the forgotten ones. The point is clear. Persisting despite doubt is a game changer for those who make history. Now, a practical challenge, small but powerful. For 7 days, choose an action that provokes your doubt and consciously perform it every day. It doesn't have to be grandiose. Speak for 60 seconds in a meeting, send an email proposing an idea, publish one thought. Note the discomfort before and after. On the first day, the discomfort will seem significant. On the second, less so. By the third, you'll start to notice small victories. By the end of the week, you will have concrete data on your ability to act under uncertainty. This data is the most effective antidote against doubt. Finally, know that doubt rarely disappears completely. It can reappear in new territories, in new forms. The difference between those who prosper and those who stagnate is that the former have learned to coexist with doubt without allowing it to make their decisions. They face the feeling, repeat the action, accumulate evidence, and over time, redefine what's possible. If you want to transform your future, accept that feeling. Fear is human, just don't let it dictate your steps. Courage isn't the absence of doubt, it's the decision to act despite it. Do this today. The most important point of everything you've heard so far is simple, yet powerful. Fear and doubt only have strength when you empower them. The secret lies in acting, even when it seems impossible. Because every step you take, even while trembling, even while feeling insecure, destroys a bit of the walls that keep you trapped. And that's when transformation happens. Not when everything is clear, but when you decide to move forward despite uncertainty. Success isn't the result of an absence of fear, but rather the courage not to be dominated by it. This is the difference between those who create their own reality and those who merely react to it. And from now on, you are aware of this. You already know that doubt is a thief, and that the only way to defeat it is by confronting it with action. Now, the next step is to continue this journey of awareness and expansion. The next video appearing on your screen will take you deeper, where you will understand how to align your mind with the frequency of creation, the exact point where the 1% lives. Click now and come with me, because there you will ascend another step in your evolution of wisdom, becoming 1% better than you are now. Thank you for being with me this far, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.